Hello everybody, here we are tonight talking about the Maple Leafs and playoff issues yet again. Before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So this season was not the best year for the Maple Leafs in terms of what they've been able to do over the past few years. However, they were still able to crack the 100-point mark, and after they were able to get out of the first round last year, you were thinking maybe there was something to build off here, and maybe they could go out and at least make the second round yet again. Yet they draw a tough matchup against the Boston Bruins as they were defeated in all 4 games against Boston in the regular season. So, of course, it's going to be an uphill battle, but you would think there's got to be some fight in this team. But at the time of recording, there's about 3 minutes left, and it looks like Boston's going to go on to win this game, which means they're going to be down 3-1 in this series. And I'm not going out there and saying that this in and of itself hurts because you're losing to a Boston team. This is a good Boston team. However, it ties into what we've seen over the past few years. And again, with this being part of the playoff failures, as it looks like they could be headed for another early exit, this would pull this Leafs era to 0-3 all time against the Bruins. The other 2 times that they lost were 2018 and 2019, which is part of the bigger problem. It's not just losing to Boston, it's the fact that out of the past 8 seasons, they've advanced in the playoffs just 1 time, which was last year. And the thing is, I thought that this series would be more about building something. Even if they did lose to Boston, in 6 or 7 games, it was about saying we could look at this and see a team that was still there. And right now I'm seeing a team that it allowed the opening goal in 3 of the past 4 games. A team that saw the Bruins have a power play that was struggling entering the playoffs, that has scored in every single game. Has multiple games where they've scored multiple power play goals in those games. Talked about how it looked like the Bruins may have figured them out on the man advantage towards their last 2 regular season matchups. Things probably are holding here as, again, the man advantage has proven to be a good thing for the Bruins as the Leafs struggled with it in the regular season, but they are continuing to struggle with it in the playoffs as well. And I know people will say, oh, we didn't have William Nylander for the first 3 games. Yes, that's true, and I'm going to be honest, that does hurt a lot in terms of what you can contribute offensively, losing a guy like him. But there's other things you got to talk about here. The fact that Austin Matthews, through the first 4 games, I believe has 1 goal. He had 69 during the course of the regular season. We talked about in the playoff series review, or preview I should say, how he has way less playoff goals compared to regular season goals as he plays higher quality competition, and how he wanted to hopefully rectify that and change things. It's hard to see this team have somebody like him that's not been able to score a lot of goals. It's hard to see them see David Pastrnak score a goal in the dying seconds of a period. Why are you letting him get an opportunity to score like that? It's hard to see this team where their power play is like 1-14 through their first 4 games. It is just hard watching this team do what they've done over and over and over and over again. And I'm not even a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. That's what's crazy about this. And again, is there any shame in losing to Boston? Absolutely not. The Bruins were probably going to win the Atlantic Division if they didn't have a little bit of a skid there towards the end of the year and Florida got hot. But it's more about the fact that they've lost 5 games, or they could lose in 5 games. Their power play is struggling. They aren't having some of their stars produce, even though their underlying numbers may look good. In the playoffs, it just does not matter. We can hear about how over and over and over again, well, the underlying numbers look good, they just had some bad luck. But if you do it over and over and over again, the fans could care less. If you do this for nearly a decade and you aren't doing a whole lot, despite being one of the better teams in the regular season, fans just don't care. And I look at this too, and I see Max Domi through the first 3 games was the point leader for this team. Nothing against Max Domi, but when you've got guys like Marner and Tavares and Matthews, it would kind of be expected of them to be able to be part of that. I mean, looking at Ryan Reeves, through the first 3 games, he had as many points as Tavares and Mitch Marner. And while I will say they face, tougher opposition and they might have good underlying numbers, it is just part of a bigger problem here for a team that just seems stuck in the mud every time they get in the playoffs. And I know Toronto fans have to be sick and tired of hearing about this because everybody is. Even if you're a younger fan, you're dealing with this drama. Or if you're an older fan, you're hearing about how you haven't won a cup in like 50 years. Which leads me to my final talking point here, as the series looks like it could be over early. Does Sheldon Keefe get the boot? I know he signed a contract extension and is signed through the 2025-2026 season. I just don't know. Because, again, with this Toronto team and the fan base the way it is, they don't deal well with a lot of failures. And I think in this sense, it's not necessarily just him, but there's been failure. There's been failure to produce, and it's been over multiple eras. I think out of all this, would this be the most painful loss in this era? Absolutely not. I think that the loss to the Blue Jackets when they were the host team in the bubble, that one was really rough. But there's just been so many times that this team, even under Keefe, has looked like they've been underperforming, and you're wondering, could we get some more, bottom 6 help? Could we have something work out here? And I'm not saying that this is necessarily Keefe's problem or it's a bad thing that he does it, but he does seem kind of abrasive when things get brought up that are negative. And I get that, people are probably going to tend to be defensive, but this job certainly is different from a lot of coaching jobs in the NHL, and he knew what he was getting into when he ended up, taking the role and then signing multiple extensions to stay as the head coach. I'm not saying that he's going to get fired per se right now, but if they lose in 5 games, you're going to be looking at this team once again and wondering what changes could be made. Obviously, Treliving is the GM there, so he's going to have to figure things out for himself too, as the fan base is not happy with playoff appearances. This is about building into something and seeing playoff success, because like I said, this is just off the heels of this game. And again, as an All-Leafs fan, maybe I shouldn't be worked up here and overreacting the way I am, but you could be seeing guys like Matthews and some of the other guys that are really good players that end up playing maybe their entire career with Toronto, and the highlight could be maybe a second round appearance, maybe one year they make it to the conference final. I just think this is the time to kind of freak out a little bit, because every year they get a little bit older and it's a little bit less likely they're going to go out there and do something. They're going to be paid these bigger contracts. They're going to be more of a risk for injury. There's going to be possibility maybe some of them fall off. And you have the situation where Nylander is saying something on the bench while it seems like Marner is upset. I don't know. I just think that this is not what you were hoping for going into the playoffs. I said that the Leafs could have possibly won in 7. That was my pick because I felt like they had a good chance as underdogs in this, even though I didn't feel like they were total underdogs. But yeah, Boston's been taking it to them, holding these big periods where they get a lot of these goals or getting out to an early start. And the Leafs just look like they're flustered. They can't get the results they want. Jeremy Swayman's been able to go out there and play well. I don't know what to say at this point. I think that there could be, again, a lot of talk about what happens in the offseason. But anyway, what are your thoughts for this series? Is it over? Does Keefe need to be fired? Are there some major changes that need to be made to this team? If they're minor, let me know all those thoughts down below. Please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey already. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.